The morning sun rose over New Eden like it had for the past 20 years. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at her office window, watching the farmers tend their crops in the distance. The green fields stretched as far as she could see, filled with earth vegetables and strange alien plants that the scientists had learned to grow. New Eden was not a big place. 50,000 people called it home. Most of them were farmers, scientists, and their families. They came here to build a peaceful life, far from the busy worlds near Earth. No one came to New Eden looking for trouble. There was no reason for trouble to find them. Elena's security force was small. She had 20 officers and one patrol ship called the Guardian. Their biggest problems were usually broken farm equipment or lost children in the cornfields. Sometimes space traders would stop by and drink too much in the local bars. Nothing serious ever happened on New Eden. Dr. James Chen worked in the research station on the other side of town. He spent his days studying new plants and finding better ways to grow food. His team had discovered 3 new types of grain that could feed millions of people across human space. James loved his work. He loved the quiet life on New Eden. His wife Sarah taught school to the colony children. His daughter Lisa was learning to ride horses on one of the farms. The people of New Eden knew about the galaxy outside their world. They traded their crops with other human colonies. They sent their discoveries to universities on Earth, but they felt safe in their little corner of space. Humans had been spreading across the galaxy for 200 years, and most of the time, other alien races left them alone. The Galactic Council kept peace between different species. Humans were still new compared to races like the ancient Etherians or the wise Calyx. But humans were good at trade and farming. They minded their own business. Other aliens saw humans as useful neighbors, nothing more. Elena walked through the town center that morning, like she did every day. Children played in the parks while their parents worked. Old Mr. Peterson was fixing his hover truck again. Mrs. Kim was arguing with the delivery robot about her grocery order. It was a normal day on a normal world where normal people lived normal lives. But far away in space, something was watching New Eden. Something that did not care about normal people living normal lives. The Kethmori hegemony was an empire built on war. For 1,000 years, they had taken what they wanted from weaker species. They had massive fleets of warships and armies of soldiers. They looked at the galaxy and saw only territory to claim. War Master Thekval studied the reports about New Eden on his flagship. The planet was in a good location for trade routes. It had rich soil and clean water. It would make an excellent base for Kethmori expansion into this part of space. The fact that humans already lived there was not important to him. Humans were a young race with weak weapons. They had no real military power. Taking their worlds was like taking candy from a child. "How many defenders does this world have?" asked Thekval. "1 small patrol ship," replied his aide. "Maybe 20 security officers. No real weapons or shields." Thekval laughed. "We will crush them in 1 day. Begin the attack." The Kethmori fleet moved toward New Eden. 50 warships, each one bigger than anything humans had in that region of space. They did not bother to send warnings or demands for surrender. They did not try to talk or make deals. They came to take what they wanted. Elena was eating lunch when the alarm started screaming. She ran to the command center, where her officers were staring at their screens in shock. "Commander, we have ships dropping out of hyperspace," said Officer Martinez. "Lots of them, big ones." Elena looked at the display. 50 red dots surrounded their world. Each dot was a warship that could destroy their entire colony by itself. "Try to contact them," Elena ordered. "I'm trying, Commander. They're not answering." Then the first energy beams hit the planet. The communication tower exploded in a ball of fire. The spaceport disappeared under a rain of plasma bolts. The power plant was turned into a smoking crater in seconds. Elena grabbed the emergency transmitter. "This is New Eden." She spoke into the device. "We are under attack. Kethmori forces are bombing our colony. They are not accepting surrender. They are killing civilians." The building shook as another explosion rocked the town. "Please remember us. Tell them what happened here." The transmitter went dead as the command center took a direct hit. Dr. Chen tried to get his family to the emergency shelters, but the shelters were already destroyed. Kethmori troops had landed and were hunting down anyone still alive. Sarah pushed Lisa behind a overturned truck and told her to hide. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lisa whispered. "It's going to be okay, baby," Sarah lied. The Kethmori soldier found them 5 minutes later. He looked at the woman and child hiding behind the truck. For a moment, Sarah hoped he might show mercy. Children were innocent in any language. The soldier raised his weapon. James heard his wife scream from 3 blocks away. He ran toward the sound, but more soldiers were everywhere. They moved through the town like they were cleaning out insects. Systematic, efficient, merciless. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, New Eden was silent. 50,000 people had lived there that morning. Now there was only ash and broken buildings. The Kethmori soldiers walked through the ruins, making sure nothing was left alive. They found a few people hiding in basements and caves. They killed them too. This was not about taking prisoners or making examples. This was about clearing the land for new owners. War Master Thekval looked at the reports from the surface. "Excellent work. Begin setting up our base. This world belongs to the hegemony now." 3 days later, a human relief ship arrived at New Eden. Captain Sarah Martinez of the UES Defender came expecting to deliver supplies and mail from home. Instead, she found a graveyard. The silence hit her first. New Eden should have been busy with farm work and children playing. Instead, her ship's scanners found no life at all. Just empty buildings and cold bodies. "Get me a full forensic team down there now," Martinez ordered. "I want to know exactly what happened." But she already knew. The energy weapon patterns were clear. The ship debris in orbit told the story. The Kethmori had come to New Eden, and they had killed everyone. Everyone. Captain Sarah Martinez stood in what used to be the main school of New Eden. The walls were black with burn marks. Small desks lay scattered across the floor like broken toys. She could still see children's drawings stuck to one wall that had somehow survived the attack. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Williams from the forensics team. He was standing near what had been the playground. His voice was quiet and sad. Martinez walked over to him. Williams had been examining bodies for 20 years, but she had never seen him look so upset. "They didn't just bomb from space," Williams said. "They sent soldiers down here. Look at these blast patterns. They went building by building, room by room. They made sure no one survived." Martinez looked at the evidence around her. Scorch marks on walls showed where people had tried to hide. Blast patterns in doorways showed where they had tried to run. The Kethmori had hunted down every single person on New Eden. "Captain," another voice called from behind them. Officer Park was holding a small device. "I found this in the command center ruins. It's Elena Vasquez's emergency transmitter." Martinez took the device and played the recording. Elena's voice came through the static, calm and clear even as her world was dying around her. "This is New Eden. We are under attack. Kethmori forces are bombing our colony. They are not accepting surrender. They are killing civilians. Please remember us. Tell them what happened here." The recording ended with an explosion. Martinez closed her eyes. She had known Elena Vasquez. They had served together on the border patrol before Elena took the job on New Eden. Elena had wanted a quiet life, away from conflict. She had found her death instead. "Get me everything," Martinez told her team. "Every piece of evidence. Every recording. Every witness mark. I want a complete record of what happened here." The team worked for 3 days. They found weapon signatures that matched Kethmori energy rifles. They found ship parts with hegemony markings. They found security footage that showed Kethmori soldiers killing people who were trying to surrender. But more than that, they found the stories. In burned houses, they found family photos and children's toys. In the research center, they found Dr. Chen's notes about feeding hungry people across the galaxy. In the farms, they found equipment for growing food, not weapons for making war. New Eden had been a place of peace, and the Kethmori had destroyed it for no reason other than they wanted the land. When Martinez returned to human space, she carried more than just evidence. She carried the anger of everyone who heard what had happened. The news spread from world to world like fire. On Earth, people watched footage of the destroyed colony and wept. On Mars, workers stopped their jobs to observe silence for the dead. On every human world, the same question was asked. How do we answer this? President Chen Wei called an emergency session of the Colonial Council. Leaders from every human world gathered to watch the evidence from New Eden. They saw the photos of murdered children. They heard Elena's final transmission. They learned that 50,000 innocent people had died for nothing more than real estate. The Keth Mori believe they can kill our people without consequences. President Chen said. They believe we are too weak to respond. They believe we will accept this and move on. They are about to learn how wrong they are. The Galactic Council met to discuss the situation. Representatives from dozens of alien species offered their thoughts and prayers. The Etherian ambassador suggested economic sanctions. The Calyx delegate proposed a strongly worded letter of disapproval. We understand human anger, said the council chairman. But this is how territory disputes have always been settled. The Keth Mori are a powerful military force. Perhaps humans should consider relocating their colonies to safer areas. Ambassador Torres stood up from his chair. His face was red with anger. Safer areas? They murdered 50,000 civilians, including children. This was not a territory dispute. This was genocide. That is a very human way to look at it, replied the chairman. Other species understand that land belongs to whoever can hold it. The Keth Mori held this land better than the humans did. Torres stared at the alien officials around him. These creatures had lived in peace for so long that they had forgotten what evil looked like. They saw the murder of innocents as a simple business transaction. I want to make something very clear, Torres said. Humans do not see this as a simple territory dispute. We see this as an act of war against our entire species. The Keth Mori have crossed a line that should never be crossed. Come now, said the Calyx delegate. Surely humans can be reasonable about this. Accept some compensation. Establish better border agreements. There is no need for violence. Torres looked around the room one more time. You really don't understand, do you? You think this ends with a payment and a treaty. You think humans will just forget about our dead children and move on. He walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Let me explain something about humans that you have never bothered to learn. We remember our dead. We remember those who kill them, and we make sure it never happens again. While the diplomats talked, other humans were taking action. Admiral Rebecca Stone received a message with only 2 words. Execute Damocles. Stone had been waiting for this order for 15 years. She walked to a secured terminal and entered a code that officially did not exist. Around human space, hidden facilities that were not on any map began to wake up. Project Damocles had been humanity's greatest secret. While aliens saw humans as peaceful traders and farmers, humans had been preparing for the day when someone would try to destroy them. They had learned from Earth's bloody history. They had studied every war, every genocide, every time good people had died because evil people had stronger weapons. Never again, the humans had promised themselves. Never again would they be helpless while their children were murdered. On the hidden base called Ragnarok Station, Admiral Stone began calling in ships that did not appear on any official registry. Captains who were supposed to be dead reported for duty. Weapons that violated every galactic treaty were loaded and prepared. The Keth Mori had made one critical error. They had assumed that humans would respond like other civilized species. They expected diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. They expected humans to be reasonable, but humans were only reasonable until someone killed their children. After that, humans became something else entirely. War Master Thekval received intelligence reports about human military movements. His advisors assured him that humans had perhaps 200 ships that could threaten the hegemony. Their technology was decent but not advanced. Their tactics were simple and predictable. Let them come, Thekval said. We will crush their pathetic fleet and take more of their worlds. These humans need to learn their place in the galaxy. He had no idea that human intelligence networks had been watching the Keth Mori for years. He did not know that every hegemony base was mapped, every ship tracked, every weakness catalogued. He did not know that the humans who brought him trade goods and diplomatic messages were actually gathering information for a war that was about to begin. Most importantly, he did not know that humans had spent 200 years asking themselves one simple question. What would we do if someone tried to wipe us out? The answer to that question was about to burn across the galaxy. Admiral Rebecca Stone walked through the halls of Ragnarok Station, a place that did not exist on any official map. The station hung in empty space between stars, hidden behind advanced stealth technology that made it invisible to alien sensors. For 20 years, the best human scientists and engineers had worked here in complete secrecy. Stone stopped at a massive window that looked out into space. Hundreds of ships floated in the darkness outside, but these were not the merchant vessels or patrol craft that other species knew about. These were warships built for one purpose: to ensure that humanity would never again face extinction. Status report, Stone said to her aide, Commander Torres. All Nemesis-class dreadnoughts are operational, Torres replied. The nanoswarm launchers are loaded and ready. Quantum communication networks are active across all human space. Project Damocles is fully online. Stone nodded. The galaxy thought humans had maybe 200 military ships. They were wrong by a factor of 50. Every civilian shipyard in human space had been building weapons in secret. Every research station had been developing new ways to destroy enemies. Every trade mission had been gathering intelligence on potential threats. The humans had learned from Earth's history. They remembered the Holocaust, the genocides, the times when evil had triumphed because good people were not prepared to fight back. After leaving Earth, humans had made a promise. Never again would they be helpless victims. Show me the intelligence reports on the Keth Mori, Stone ordered. The holographic display filled with information. Every Keth Mori system was mapped in perfect detail. Every military base, every shipyard, every government building was marked and catalogued. Human agents had spent years gathering this data, pretending to be traders and diplomats while actually preparing for war. Commander Alex Chen stepped out of the shadows. Most people thought Alex had died in a mining accident 5 years ago. In reality, he had been running humanity's most secret intelligence network, watching and waiting for the day when someone would threaten human civilians. We have complete surveillance on all Keth Mori activities, Alex reported. Our agents are in position throughout their empire. We know where every ship is located, where every leader lives, where every weapon is stored. Stone studied the data. The Keth Mori had 47 star systems under their control. They had 3,000 warships, 10 billion soldiers, and weapons that could destroy planets. On paper, they vastly outgunned humanity. But the Keth Mori had made one fatal mistake. They fought wars the old way, with big fleets and massive armies. Humans had learned to fight wars the new way, with technology that could change the rules of reality itself. Show me the nanoswarms, Stone said. Another display lit up, showing billions of tiny machines smaller than bacteria. Each nanoswarm could dismantle matter at the molecular level, taking apart anything it touched and rebuilding it into whatever humans wanted. The Keth Mori thought they were protected by thick armor and energy shields. They had no idea that human nanoswarms could simply erase those protections from existence. Stellar manipulation satellites? Stone asked. In position around 17 Keth Mori suns, Torres replied. We can increase solar output by 30% or decrease it by 50%. We can make their stars burn hotter or turn them cold and dark. Stone smiled coldly. While the Keth Mori had been building bigger guns and thicker armor, humans had been learning to control the fundamental forces of the universe. They could reprogram matter, manipulate stars, and think faster than any organic mind. What about our AI allies? The Prometheus units are ready, Alex said. Each one can process information 1,000,000 times faster than any Keth Mori brain. They have been studying hegemony tactics and developing countermeasures. The enemy will not be able to surprise us. Stone nodded. The artificial intelligences were another human secret. While other species still struggled with basic computer systems, humans had created minds that could outthink entire alien governments. The AIs were not slaves or tools. They were allies who shared humanity's commitment to protecting the innocent. Across human space, other preparations were underway. On the surface, human worlds looked the same as always. Farmers tended their crops, children went to school, merchants sold their goods, but underneath the peaceful surface, humanity was preparing for total war. Factories that made farming equipment began producing weapons instead. Mines that dug for precious metals started creating materials for warships. Scientists who studied plant diseases turned their attention to more deadly things. President Chen Wei met with his top advisors in a room buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. The weight of 50,000 dead civilians hung over every word they spoke. "The Galactic Council thinks we will accept compensation," President Chen said. "They think we will forgive and forget. They think humans are too civilized for real revenge." "What are your orders, Mr. President?" asked General Park. Chen thought about Dr. James Chen, who shared his last name but was not related to him. James had been trying to feed the galaxy's hungry people. His little daughter, Lisa, had been learning to ride horses. Sarah had been teaching children to read and write. All dead now, murdered for the crime of living on land that the Keth Mori wanted. "The Keth Mori believe that might makes right," Chen said. "They believe that strong people can murder weak people without consequences. It is time to show them what real strength looks like." He turned to Admiral Stone, who was attending the meeting through secure quantum communication. "Admiral, you have authorization to use any means necessary. Show the galaxy what happens when someone murders human children." Stone saluted. "It will be done, Mr. President." The final preparations began. Human agents throughout Kethmori space received their orders. Stealth ships moved into position around enemy systems. Nano-swarm launchers prepared to deploy. AI systems began calculating the most efficient ways to dismantle an entire civilization. But first, humans offered the Keth Mori one last chance to avoid their fate. President Chen Wei's message was broadcast across the galaxy, transmitted on every frequency and translated into every known language. The alien diplomats who received it thought it was just another political speech. They had no idea they were listening to a declaration of war. "People of the galaxy," Chen began. 3 days ago, the Keth Mori hegemony murdered 50,000 human civilians on the world called New Eden. Men, women, and children were systematically executed for the crime of living on land that the hegemony wanted. Chen's voice was calm and controlled, but those who knew humans could hear the anger underneath. "We have given the Galactic Council time to respond to this act of genocide. They have offered economic sanctions and diplomatic protests. They believe this is an appropriate response to the murder of innocents." Chen paused, letting his words sink in. "We disagree. Humans have a different view of justice. We believe that those who kill children should face consequences. We believe that genocidal empires should not be allowed to exist." The transmission switched to show images from New Eden. Burned schools and destroyed homes. The bodies of families who had died trying to protect each other. "War Master Thekval, we address you directly. You have 72 hours to surrender yourself and every soldier who participated in the New Eden massacre for trial as war criminals. You have 72 hours to disband your military and submit to galactic justice." Chen's image returned to the screen. Behind him stood Admiral Stone and the other leaders of humanity's secret military forces. "If you refuse, we will show you why humans have survived every attempt to destroy us. We will show you why our species has spread across the galaxy, despite every obstacle. We will show you what happens when someone makes the mistake of thinking that humans are weak." The transmission ended with a simple timer, counting down 72 hours. War Master Thekval laughed when he received the message. His advisors assured him that humans were bluffing. Intelligence reports suggested that humanity had no military forces capable of threatening the hegemony. This was just political theater, designed to save face. "Let them come," Thekval said. "We will crush whatever pathetic fleet they can assemble. Then we will take more of their worlds, to teach them respect. 72 hours later, the timer reached 0, and humanity showed the galaxy what they had been building in secret. The attack began at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Across 17 Kethmori star systems, reality itself began to change. Nanoswarms that had been drifting undetected through space for months suddenly activated. Each swarm contained billions of microscopic machines, too small for Kethmori sensors to detect, but powerful enough to dismantle matter at the molecular level. The first thing to disappear was the hegemony's orbital defense network. Massive space stations that had protected Kethmori worlds for centuries simply fell apart, their metal hulls dissolving into component atoms. Energy shields that could stop planet-killing weapons flickered out as their generators became clouds of loose particles. Admiral Ketnori was commanding the hegemony's Third Fleet when his flagship began to shake apart around him. He watched in horror as his weapons systems crumbled like sand. The bridge windows became powder. His own command chair started to dissolve beneath him. "What is happening?" he screamed into his communicator. But the communicator was gone, reduced to its basic elements by machines too small to see. Across the Kethmori Empire, the same scene played out thousands of times. Shipyards that had built warships for 1,000 years collapsed into dust. Military bases became empty spaces where buildings used to stand. Weapons that had conquered dozens of species turned into harmless piles of raw materials. But this was only the beginning. As the nanoswarms did their work, human warships began dropping out of hyperspace. These were not the small patrol craft and merchant vessels that the galaxy knew about. These were the Nemesis-class dreadnoughts, ships built in secret specifically to fight this war. Each Nemesis was 3 times larger than the biggest Kethmori battleship. Their hulls were made from materials that did not exist in nature, created by human science that had advanced far beyond what anyone suspected. Their weapons could punch through any known defense as if it were paper. Captain Maria Santos commanded the dreadnought Retribution as it emerged from hyperspace above the Kethmori homeworld. Around her, 49 other Nemesis ships took their positions in perfect formation. Their quantum-locked targeting systems identified every military installation on the planet below. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone," came the voice over the fleet communication system. "Remember why we are here. Remember New Eden. Show them no mercy, for they showed none to our children." The Retribution's main gun charged with energy that made nearby space itself glow. When it fired, the beam passed through the planet's shields as if they did not exist. The hegemony's primary military academy, where young Kethmori learned to be soldiers, became a crater of molten glass. But the humans were not finished. As Kethmori ships tried to respond to the attack, they discovered that their most advanced weapons were useless. Human stealth technology made the attacking fleet nearly invisible. Human AI systems predicted every enemy movement before it happened. Human shields absorbed energy attacks and turned them back on their attackers. The Battle of Kethmor Prime lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the hegemony's home fleet no longer existed. 3,000 Kethmori warships had been reduced to space debris. Their orbital defenses were gone. Their military infrastructure was destroyed. And this was happening in 17 star systems at the same time. Commander Alex Chen watched the operation unfold from his hidden command center. Intelligence reports flowed in from across Kethmori space. Every major military installation was being systematically destroyed. Every fleet was being annihilated. Every weapon that could threaten human civilians was being eliminated. "Sir," reported one of his analysts, "the Kethmori government is trying to surrender." Alex looked at the communication request from War Master Thekval. The leader who had laughed at human threats was now begging for mercy. "Deny the request," Alex said coldly. "They had their chance to surrender. They chose to fight instead." "But sir, they're offering full reparations. They want to negotiate." Alex thought about Dr. James Chen's daughter, hiding behind a truck while Kethmori soldiers hunted her down. He thought about Elena Vasquez's final transmission, asking only that someone remember what had happened to her people. "There will be no negotiations," Alex said. "They crossed a line that should never be crossed. Now they face the consequences." The stellar manipulation satellites began their work next. Hidden in the coronas of Kethmori suns, These devices started changing the fundamental properties of the stars themselves. Solar output increased by carefully calculated amounts. Planets that had supported life for millions of years began to experience rapid climate change. On Kethmore Prime, the temperature rose by 5 degrees in the first day. Ice caps began to melt. Oceans started to boil. The atmosphere itself began to burn, as increased radiation from their sun overwhelmed the planet's natural defenses. Refugee ships fled from dying worlds, carrying stories of impossible weapons and unstoppable enemies. Kethmori civilians who had supported their government's expansion suddenly found themselves homeless and afraid. They had cheered when the hegemony conquered weaker species. Now they learned what it felt like to be conquered. But humanity was selective in its vengeance. Refugee ships were allowed to escape after being thoroughly scanned for war criminals. Medical supplies were sent to help Kethmori civilians on worlds that could still support life. Children and elderly Kethmori were evacuated to safety. "We are not like them," Admiral Stone explained to her officers. "We do not murder innocents. We only destroy those who chose to make themselves our enemies." The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the Kethmori hegemony collapsed. Other alien governments suddenly discovered urgent reasons to review their military policies. Border disputes with human colonies were resolved overnight with remarkable generosity. Piracy in human space stopped completely. The Etherian Council called an emergency session to discuss the situation. "How did we not know about these weapons?" demanded Councillor Thexani. "Our intelligence said humans had primitive military technology." "Our intelligence was wrong," replied the military advisor. "Humans have been hiding their true capabilities for decades. They built an entire shadow military, while appearing to focus on trade and agriculture." On the Galactic Council, emergency debates raged about humanity's actions. "This is genocide," shouted the Calyx representative. "Humans are destroying an entire species." Ambassador Torres stood to respond. "The Kethmori committed genocide when they murdered 50,000 civilians on New Eden. We are simply ensuring they cannot do it again." "But this response is disproportionate," argued the council chairman. "Surely the destruction of their military is enough." Torres looked around the chamber at the alien faces staring at him. These creatures still did not understand what they were dealing with. "Let me explain something about humans that you have clearly failed to grasp," Torres said. "When someone kills our children, there is no such thing as a disproportionate response. We will do whatever it takes to ensure it never happens again." "But they are surrendering," protested the Etherian delegate. "They are offering to make peace." "They offered to make peace after murdering innocents," Torres replied. "That is not how justice works. That is not how humans work." The council session devolved into chaos as different species argued about humanity's actions. Some called for immediate intervention to stop the destruction. Others quietly wondered if they might be next if they ever threatened human civilians. Meanwhile, the hunt for war criminals continued. Human intelligence had detailed records of every Kethmori involved in the New Eden massacre. Special operations teams tracked down the soldiers who had murdered civilians. Military tribunals were established to try those who survived their encounters with human justice. Warmaster Thekval was found hiding in a bunker on a distant moon. When human soldiers came for him, he tried to argue that he had just been following hegemony law. The soldiers were not impressed by his excuses. "You could have chosen not to murder children," said the team leader. "You chose differently. Now, you face the consequences of that choice." Thekval was taken to a human tribunal ship, where he faced justice for his crimes. He was not the only one. Across what had been Kethmori space, war criminals were being hunted down with methodical precision. As the Kethmori suns began to dim and their worlds grew cold, automated beacons were placed throughout their former territory. Each beacon broadcast the same message in every galactic language. Here died a civilization that murdered human children. They believed humans were weak. They believed humans would not respond to genocide. They were wrong. Let all who find this place remember. Humanity forgives many sins, but never that one. The galaxy had learned a new truth about humans. Behind their peaceful smiles and diplomatic words lay something ancient and terrible. A species that would sacrifice anything, including their own moral comfort, to protect their young. The age of underestimating humanity was over. 3 months after the last Kethmori surrender, Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the observation deck of Ragnarok Station and watched the final reports come in. 47 star systems that had once belonged to the hegemony were now silent monuments to the price of genocide. Some of the worlds were empty. Their populations evacuated before their suns became too hot to sustain life. Others had been turned into memorial parks where the names of New Eden's dead were carved into mountains that would last forever. A few had been given to refugee species that the Keth Mori had driven from their homes. But most of former Keth Mori space was simply empty now. Dead worlds orbiting dying stars, marked only by the automated beacons that told the galaxy what had happened here. Final casualty report, Commander Torres said, handing Stone a datapad. Stone read the numbers without emotion. 3 billion Keth Mori had lived when the war began. 2.8 billion had been evacuated to neutral worlds before their planets became uninhabitable. 150 million had died when their suns burned too hot. 12,000 had been executed as war criminals after fair trials. The math was simple. For every human who died on New Eden, 60,000 Keth Mori had lost their homes. For every human child murdered, 300 Keth Mori children had become refugees. Was it worth it? Torres asked quietly. Stone thought about the question. She thought about Elena Vasquez calling for help as her world died around her. She thought about Dr. Chen's research that could have fed billions of people. She thought about Lisa Chen, who would never grow up to ride horses or have children of her own. Ask me in 100 years, Stone said. Ask me when we see if anyone else tries to murder human civilians. The answer came sooner than expected. The Vexes-Kari Union had been planning to attack human mining colonies in the Outer Rim. They had seen humans as soft targets, species more interested in profit than fighting. Their fleets were already moving when news of the Keth Mori War reached their leadership. The attack was cancelled within hours. The Vex-Kari ambassador personally delivered an apology for any misunderstanding and offered favorable trade agreements with human colonies. They suddenly discovered that the disputed mining rights belonged to humanity after all. Similar stories played out across the galaxy. Pirates who had been raiding human merchant ships disappeared overnight. Border disputes that had dragged on for years were resolved with remarkable speed. Alien governments that had been ignoring human diplomatic protests suddenly found human concerns to be very reasonable. The Galactic Council passed new legislation prohibiting attacks on civilian populations. The vote was unanimous. President Chen Wei addressed the Human Colonial Federation 6 months after New Eden's destruction. The memorial service was broadcast across human space, watched by billions of people who had learned that their peaceful way of life was protected by strength their enemies could not imagine. We did not choose this war, Chen said. We did not want to become the species that burns worlds and destroys civilizations. But when faced with the choice between allowing genocide and stopping it forever, we chose to act. Behind him stood a memorial wall with 50,000 names carved in black stone. Every person who had died on New Eden was remembered, from Elena Vasquez to little Lisa Chen. Some in the galaxy say we went too far, Chen continued. They say our response was disproportionate. They say we should have accepted diplomatic solutions and economic compensation. Chen paused and looked directly into the camera. To those critics, I say this. Come to New Eden. Walk through the ashes of murdered children. Listen to Elena Vasquez's final transmission. Then tell me we went too far. The memorial service ended with a moment of silence that lasted across all of human space. On Earth, on Mars, on colonies throughout the galaxy, humans stopped what they were doing and remembered their dead. But they also remembered something else. They remembered that they were not helpless. They remembered that their peaceful way of life was protected by forces that their enemies could not comprehend. They remembered that anyone who threatened human children would face consequences beyond their worst nightmares. 5 years later, Ambassador Torres retired from diplomatic service. He had spent decades trying to build peaceful relationships with alien species, but the Keth Mori War had changed everything. Diplomacy was easier now, but it was also different. Other species no longer saw humans as harmless neighbors. They saw humans as the species that had destroyed an entire empire in revenge for a single colony. Torres spent his retirement writing a book about the war. The final chapter included a conversation he had with a young Etherian diplomat who asked why humans had been so angry about New Eden. Other species lose colonies all the time, the young alien had said. It is simply how the galaxy works. Territory changes hands. Populations move. Why did humans react so differently? Torres had thought carefully about his answer. How could he explain human nature to a species that had never faced extinction? How could he describe the bonds that connected all human communities, even those separated by thousands of light years? When the Kethmori attacked New Eden, they did not just murder 50,000 people, Torres had finally said. They murdered 50,000 members of our family. Every human parent saw their own children in those ashes. Every human child saw their own family in those ruins. But they were not actually related, the alien had protested. They were not from the same genetic group or the same planet. That is where you misunderstand us, Torres had replied. Humans do not define family by genetics or location. We define it by choice and commitment. Every human colony, no matter how distant, is part of our family. When you attack one of us, you attack all of us. The book became required reading at diplomatic academies throughout the galaxy. Young alien diplomats learned about human culture, human values, and human responses to threats. They learned that humans would trade peacefully, negotiate fairly, and coexist happily with any species willing to do the same. They also learned what happened to species that chose differently. 20 years after the war, Dr. Sarah Martinez visited the New Eden Memorial. She was Captain Martinez's daughter, named after her mother and Elena Vasquez. Sarah had become a botanist like Dr. Chen, working to continue his research into feeding the galaxy's hungry populations. She walked through the memorial gardens where earth flowers grew alongside alien plants that Dr. Chen had been studying. His research notes had been recovered from the ruins and completed by other scientists. His dream of ending hunger was slowly becoming reality. At the center of the memorial stood a simple stone with Elena Vasquez's final transmission carved into its surface. Visitors from across the galaxy came to read those words and understand what they meant about humanity. This is New Eden. We are under attack. Kethmori forces are bombing our colony. They are not accepting surrender. They are killing civilians. Please remember us. Tell them what happened here. Below the transmission, another inscription had been added in every galactic language. We remembered. We told them. We made sure it would never happen again. Sarah left flowers at the memorial and returned to her research. There was still work to do. Still hungry people to feed. Still peaceful colonies to build. The galaxy was a safer place for civilian populations now, but that safety required constant vigilance. Somewhere in the depths of space, Ragnarok Station continued its quiet watch. The Nemesis-class dreadnoughts waited in their hidden berths. The nanoswarm launchers stood ready. The stellar manipulation satellites monitored distant suns. Humanity had returned to its peaceful ways. But the galaxy had learned an important truth. Behind every human farmer and every human teacher, behind every human merchant and every human scientist, stood the promise that those who murdered innocents would face justice. The promise was simple and absolute. Harm our children, and we will end you. The galaxy believed that promise now. Pirates chose different targets. Aggressive empires reconsidered their expansion plans. Border disputes were settled through negotiation rather than force. And in the space that had once belonged to the Kethmori hegemony, automated beacons continued their eternal broadcast. Here died a civilization that murdered human children. They believed humans were weak. They believed humans would not respond to genocide. They were wrong. Let all who find this place remember. Humanity forgives many sins, but never that one. The message echoed through empty space. A warning and a promise that would last as long as stars burned in the galaxy. A reminder that some lines should never be crossed. The age of underestimating humanity was over. The age of protecting the innocent had begun, and somewhere in the ruins of New Eden, Elena Vasquez's final wish had been granted. The galaxy remembered what had happened there. The galaxy told the story, and the galaxy made sure it would never happen again.